What's up, YouTube? KS Gun Guy here to talk to you a little bit about the Smith & Wesson M&P 45 Shield. This will probably be a little bit shorter video than my other videos in the past. This really isn't going to be a compare against other firearms, more just about the gun itself. Plus, I don't really have any other single stack 45s to compare to, like maybe the Springfield XDS 45, which is very much a direct competitor or very similar to this gun. So we're really just going to focus on this today. I wanted to share a little bit of my experiences with this gun and just talk about why I like it quite a bit. It's actually been a carry gun for me, and I've been pleasantly surprised with it. So first things first, of course, the gun is unloaded, and any guns that I show, I will wheel in a couple of other guns just to show size-wise. They will all be unloaded as well. No ammo on the table or anything like that. But so let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, let's talk a little bit about the specs of the gun. The overall length of the Shield 45 is 6.45 inches. The height with an empty magazine, and this is an empty magazine, of course. The height with the flush magazine is going to be 4.88 inches. The width on the gun is just under an inch. It's 0.99 inches. The barrel on the gun is 3.33 inches. And the weight of the gun with an empty magazine, such as this one, is 22.7 ounces. Now the magazine capacity on this, you do get 2 magazines with the firearm, which is nice, stainless steel construction. You're going to have a 6-round magazine, and then you're going to have an extended 7-round magazine. It's kind of funny that they put 6+1 and 6+1 on both of these, but in truth, 6 rounds and 7 rounds. And I believe that's just because of the extra base plate that comes with this. So how does that look in the gun with the extended base plate? It does extend the grip for sure. I do find, however, with the grip that I can actually wrap my pinky around it. I've got, I'd say, kind of medium to large size hands, pretty average. And I can wrap that third finger around versus some of the other single stack firearms, certainly in the 9mm category, like the Shield 9mm or maybe a Glock 43, something like that. I really can't get my pinky around it. So it's kind of nice, even with the flush magazine, you can definitely get a hold of it. But with that extended magazine in there, you certainly have quite a bit to hold on to. So it's very nice. And as far as the grip goes, I'll go ahead and mention, I love the grip on the Shield 45. They've made some dramatic improvements as opposed to the standard Shield, the 9mm or the 40 caliber Shield, even the Performance Center version. With the 45, they've put in some extra stippling, and it's stippled all the way around, even on the extended base plate. So it really is very grippy in the hand, which is fantastic. It makes it, to me, a softer recoiling gun, or at least you can keep a better purchase on the gun as you're shooting. And I will wheel in some shooting video along the way so you can kind of see how this looks at the range. But I love the stipple job on this, and it comes directly from the factory. I wish the other Shields also came with that grip. Maybe someday down the road they will. So how does the 45 Shield stack up against a couple of its siblings? Again, I'm not going to compare it to guns of other manufacturers, partly because I really don't have anything else to compare it to from a single stack 45 point of view. But how does it stack up against some of its siblings, like the Shield 9mm? Of course, this is unloaded. So how does it stack up? The Shield 45 is just a hair bigger in almost every way from the Shield 9mm. So the overall length, it's about 3/10 of an inch longer than the Shield 45. The height is going to be about 2/10 of an inch, almost 3/10 of an inch taller. I'll go ahead and put the flush magazine in both of them here. Do have an empty magazine for the 9. Okay, so it is just a little bit taller. The width on the two, they're almost identical from a width standpoint. However, the Shield 45 being 0.99 inches and the width on the Shield 9 being 0.95 inches. So just a little bit different. You will see that I do have Trijicon HD sights on my 9mm. I may end up doing that on the 45. I haven't decided yet. But again, the 45 sights are robust enough. It hasn't been that big of an issue with me. So the Shield 45 is just a hair bigger than its direct sibling. But then how does it stack up perhaps against the M&P Compact? Now the Compact, as you know, it's a little different. Unloaded, of course. The Compact is going to be a double stack firearm, so your width is definitely going to be a little bit different. But from a length standpoint, they're basically the same length. The Compact is maybe 1/10 of an inch longer, but really where it counts is going to be in the width. The width on the M&P, I think, is 1.2 or 1.26 inches, so it's a couple of tenths of inches wider. So from a concealed carry standpoint, if width matters to you, then that can be a serious consideration for you. Now the overall height on that, they're going to be not quite an inch different from each other. I don't have the actual specs with me on the 9C, unfortunately, but there's a fair bit of difference in the grip length there. So the grip length on the Shield 45 does win out a little bit. So if grip length is an issue to you, the 45 may not be your best option. Maybe going with the Compact might be the right option. And I believe the Compact does come in a 9 or a 45 rather. This one happens to be a 9. So the 45 kind of stands alone in dimensions a little bit. It does not have identical dimensions in any of its siblings, but as far as I'm concerned, it's really the right size for this gun. It's just big enough to be able to be shot comfortably at the range. It's not unwieldy by any stretch of the imagination. So just a great gun overall. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the trigger of the Shield 45. Another improvement that they've made with the 45 Shield, along with the Performance Center 9mm. I don't know that they have a Performance Center 40 caliber, but I have shot the Performance Center 9mm. They made some improvements on the internals of the trigger. I don't know that they necessarily partnered with anyone like Apex, but they've spent a little bit more time with the trigger to make it a little bit smoother, a little bit more crisp, and take out any of the roughness during the take up. So of course it is unloaded again. So for the trigger, and this is a hinged design trigger, so it is a safety trigger. You actually have to depress the hinge, which will in turn depress a little notch at the very base of the trigger here, so it'll be able to actually go into the frame housing. Otherwise, if you pull straight back or pull up on it, it actually will not fire. So you do have to make sure that you're depressing the wing or the hinge trigger on this. So there's a little bit of take up here, a little bit of dead space, but it's very smooth. And once you get to a pretty defined wall, you have a break, and it's a very crisp break. It's very predictable and very crisp. And then an audible reset. And the reset's not too far out. You don't have to go all the way back out, which is fantastic. So again, we've got our take up, and then a wall, and then our break, and then our reset, audible and tactile. So very nice trigger, very easy to shoot. To me, there's not a lot of work that would need to be done with it unless you just are trigger crazy and have to do work on triggers. This one out of the box is a very smooth shooter, which is really nice. As far as the sights go on the Shield 45, this is going to be a Novak style white dot sight, and they are of steel construction, which is great. I've said it in other views before. I much prefer steel sights. They're less prone to break, like maybe a Glock sight, which is made of polymer. So you don't necessarily have to walk into the gun and make an investment on aftermarket sights unless you really want to. And then, of course, you could look for maybe night sights, something like that. And the other Shield sights do work on this, at least according to Ameriglow and Trijicon, Meprolite. They all say that the sights are interchangeable between the two. You don't have to worry about sight height or anything like that like you do on some guns. So that's kind of nice. There are already plenty of aftermarket sights for this ready to go. Now, it's Novak style, and it does not have a ledge on this particular type of sight here, so you wouldn't be able to do any one-handed manipulations against a tabletop or a belt or anything like that. So from a concealed carry standpoint, if something terrible were to happen and you really had to use one arm, that would be a little bit of a bummer. But otherwise, they're great construction and very easy to use at the range, so I don't really see a need to change them out, at least right away. Maybe some night sights down the road, but kudos on them for putting on good quality sights. All right, so let's take a look at the takedown of the Smith & Wesson Shield and see how easy it is to take down and also how to clean. First thing you do need to lock the slide back. And once you do, you've actually got the option to, there's a little lever in here, and this is the same with all Smith & Wesson M&P firearms. There's a little lever, and see if I can get this with a Glock tool. Don't tell Smith & Wesson I'm doing this with a Glock tool. But you can depress the lever down, and it's colored yellow, although not very yellow. You can still make it out. Once you press that lever down, you can come over and you do have a takedown lever. You need to wheel that down just like that. And once you do, the gun comes apart. The nice thing about this lever, if you do depress it, it means you don't have to pull the trigger when you take the gun apart, which is kind of nice. Striker-fired guns are meant to be fired dry fire, so it's not that big of a deal. If you don't pull this lever down, all you have to do is pull the trigger and take it apart. Of course, you want to make sure that the gun is unloaded. That's a good habit to be in, of course, but this does prevent you from having to pull the trigger. Kind of a nice feature. But once you've got the gun apart, you've got your standard frame, you've got your recoil spring and guide rod, and then you've got your barrel. That's a big barrel right there for that 45 slug. So pretty standard components, same with most any striker-fired firearms here. The rails on the frame are of steel construction, good quality construction. The workmanship on this is just fine. It's been not finicky at all, so that's been a delight. Very easy to clean. To put the gun back together, just put your barrel in, make sure that it is seated flush, and get your guide rod and spring back in. And just have to make sure that it's flush against the lug, the barrel lug right here. I do find with the Shield 45, you don't have to work very hard to get this in the lug. It just barely sits in there, but as long as it's in the notch and sitting flush, you're okay. And then just put your slide back on and lock it open. And put your takedown lever back up. Now, one thing, and this is the same with all M&P firearms, right now I can't check for functionality on it. The trigger's actually dead. There's nothing wrong with the gun. You haven't broken it or anything like that. But what you have to do with an empty magazine or maybe a loaded magazine, if you're at the range ready to shoot, you just put the magazine in, and what that does is that actually puts that lever, that lever that we used to not pull the trigger when we took it apart, it actually puts that lever back up. And so now the gun will shoot. It is functional, so we're ready to go. So very good construction, very easy to clean and maintain, to take apart. As far as working on the internals of the gun, I haven't had any experience with taking this all the way down, like the trigger assembly or anything like that. I have done a little bit of work on my 9mm Shield. Shields and Smith & Wessons in general are a little bit more challenging, or at least a little bit more labor intensive as far as getting the roll pins out and some of those types of things. But it is doable to work on your firearm if you want to change out any internal parts or anything like that. There are plenty of YouTube videos, how how-tos. If you want someone to kind of guide you along the way, you can definitely do it. Not sure that I'll be doing a video like that because it's already been done, and frankly, I find these to be a little bit challenging. I'm not sure I want to do that on video. We'll see. Time will tell. But again, it can be done. Just a little bit more challenging. Not quite as easy as maybe a Glock or something like that to work with. So now that we've talked a little bit about the specs and a little bit about some of the features of the gun, let's take a look at some shooting and see how it does at the range. All right, so what's it like to shoot the M&P Shield 45? Like I said before, it's a sweet shooter. It's a lot of fun to shoot at the range. You could definitely put a couple of rounds down range. Now, I will say that that the stippling on the grip, after a while, it'll probably rub the web of your hand just a little bit. But it's fun to shoot at the range, even though it's a single stack, relatively light 45 caliber pistol. It's manageable. The recoil is definitely manageable. They've done a great job between the recoil spring and the grip, ensuring that that you have the best shooting experience that you can with this. I find it easier to shoot than even some commander size all steel frame 45s. I've shot things like the Ruger SR 1911 Commander or CMD, whatever it's called. Fun gun to shoot, but a little snappier. I find that this is not quite as snappy. So it's been a lot of fun to shoot at the range. A really good time. It's certainly been reliable. It's put every round through it that I've put through it. A lot of different factory loads and even a couple of self-defense hollow point loads. Not a problem. This gun maybe has around 400 or so rounds through it. So not a very high round count, but still enough to say that so far so good. And I've been very pleased with it. So how about the aftermarket support? Aside from some of those internals like Apex internals, that sort of thing, and different aftermarket sights on it, there are also a lot of holster options out there. You can certainly get a hold of magazines now. I know when the gun first came out, it was hard to get additional magazines, but they're out there and they're prevalent now. As far as holsters go, I use a Vetter inside the waistband holster, and that's the same with any firearm that I carry. I love Vetter holsters. They're not terrifically expensive, but they're great construction, and it does a great job. Good retention. So that works very well for me, very comfortable. There are a lot of other options out there as well, certainly other inside the waistband styles and options as well as outside the waistband. So lots of aftermarket support for this, and which is great. It makes it easier to customize or easier to get the things that you need to be able to do what you need to do with the gun. As far as price goes with the Shield 45, you're probably going to be able to walk into this somewhere in the $400 to $450 range, depending on whether you're able to find it used or maybe on sale. Then you factor in tax with that, unless you're able to find it. Maybe if your state allows for individuals to sell firearms to each other, then you might be able to avoid that. However, they're kind of falling into the $400 to $450 range, so not a bad deal at all. It's a very good price, a modest price for a good firearm. So would I carry it? Yes, absolutely. In fact, I've carried it on many occasions. It's in my everyday carry rotation. I've got several guns that I like to carry, but definitely this would be one of them. All right, YouTube, thanks for joining me and talking about the Smith & Wesson M&P 45 Shield. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and share the video, and I'll see you next time.